Hey guys, welcome back to the Richard Fernando Investing channel. Be sure to subscribe if you're new. The Slim Shady of the financial YouTube world coming at you. And today we're going to talk about the big news that PayPal, the huge news, that PayPal is entering the buy now, pay later sector. And we're going to split it into two kind of general sections. So we're going to start the video with the pros and the benefits for PayPal, and then unfortunately just the not too great stuff for the Australian, I guess, buy now, pay later sector, which is honestly just one of the most hyped areas I've ever really seen. It's, in my opinion, it's even more hyped than the EV sector out there right now, because many of the companies are relatively unproven, yet still kind of attracting a lot more money than you'd expect. Benefits for PayPal, quite obvious. We have a new revenue stream, fantastic, well done. And then on top of that, there is so much that PayPal can copy that has worked successfully in Australia and in the Australian efforts to go abroad through companies like Afterpay and ZipPay. If you PayPal holders or potential PayPal, I guess, investors want to kind of search what these Aussie companies are, just to understand what they do. A lot of investor presentations to see that sort of stuff. ZipPay and Afterpay are probably the ones that I would suggest you look at, listed on the ASX. Yes, new revenue stream. What buy now, pay later essentially is, it's almost a deal or a partnership with the actual merchants, from what I've seen. I think it depends on the company, but the more successful and larger ones do deals with the merchant, and then they take a cut of, I guess, the sale price, and then they let consumers pay for that product in 4 interest-free installments, which, as I explain it, it sounds even less impressive. You know, I'm not particularly sold on the whole buy now, pay later sector in Australia. Well, I never really have been. You know, it's just an opportunity I guess I've missed as well. Maybe I just can't see it. Just because the valuations have been crazy. You know, the largest buy now, pay later company reached a larger market capitalization than the first or second largest supermarket here in Australia, which is Coles. So 25 billion Australian dollar market cap it reached. Which, you know, if you convert to US would be what, like 18, 19 billion? So huge. And I did a long kind of assignment into Afterpay and compared it and its capital structure to StoneCo in Brazil, which again, its market cap was also larger than StoneCo, who had quite successful and profitable operations in Brazil. So there was just a lot that was kind of making me a bit nervous, so I never actually bought into the buy now, pay later stuff, which is not to say it doesn't have a future, so I'll get onto that later. But yes, PayPal, huge opportunity, potentially multi-billion, I'm talking tens of billions of dollars in just new, I guess, enthusiasm for starters, and a kind of renewed enthusiasm in the product. And because it's a new revenue stream, there are so many ways they can go with it. So if you look at companies like Alibaba, for example, they have Singles Day in China. You know, you've got Prime Day in the US with Amazon, and I guess they do it globally now. The exciting thing is that PayPal could definitely do the same. So here in Australia, we have Afterpay Day, and that's essentially just more deals through this buy now, pay later service, the whole buy in 4 installments, kind of easily manage it in an app or whatever you want to do. And they kind of do more marketing and partnerships with the merchants that they're getting the cut from to essentially just push more products out the door through their service. And I think that PayPal has a huge opportunity to do that. Apart from that, simple benefits to PayPal, they are in a new fintech type area, which, I mean, for investors is a huge delight, because there's so many positive ways this can go. And they are easily the biggest player in buy now, pay later. So here in Australia, it's a bit of a dogfight. You know, the cream have been rising to the top, but in terms of raising cash and all that sort of stuff, it's not easy. They've had to dilute shareholders, that sort of thing, whereas PayPal has the might to be able to do this without too much effort. And how do I know this? When the news was announced, like, PayPal were the ones that announced it, and it has decimated a lot of the buy now, pay later stocks here in Australia over the past 2 days. Whether they'll recover, we'll see. But PayPal stock, when the news was announced, it was not moving the ticker. No one seemed to care. I went through their stock twits. No one seemed to know what was going on. Or the announcement would come up by a bot, and no one would even care to comment on it. It didn't seem like a huge deal for PayPal holders, which I think if you are a PayPal shareholder, you should be quietly confident in the fact that there is still this added revenue stream that not many people are factoring in, and it kind of might give you a bit more of a sense of security in terms of just a margin of safety. It gives you this future business you can tack on top to your future projections for where the company's stock price will go in the next few years, or if you're a shorter term, just in the next 12 months. I see potential for PayPal to benefit more so when obviously the company actually launches the product, which is still a few months away by the looks of things, but they are planning to try and get it out there pretty quickly. Since the announcement to launch date is not very far. It's going to be interesting to see how aggressive they are in marketing it, and whether they can leverage Venmo, which is their kind of equivalent to the Cash App, although Venmo I think came first. And if they can use Venmo to really push it to become the norm almost. Because here in Australia at least, amongst younger consumers especially, around my age, just in their 20s and whatnot, and even younger than that really, I've spoken to a lot of people, and it is very, very easy to have buy now, pay later just become your norm. I personally have avoided it because I like to look after my money, but I can see the appeal, and so if PayPal can make this work in the US, which I mean in terms of consumption completely dwarfs Australia naturally, then it is a massive opportunity for PayPal bulls, and I would definitely recommend, if you are a PayPal investor or looking to invest in PayPal stock, to do a very deep dive into Afterpay, into the struggles they have had in terms of just cash and that sort of stuff, which you probably won't have to face, to get to where they are now, in terms of just a market leader, you would say, here in Australia in that sector. And look into Zip Pay and all the others just to see how they differentiate, and potentially whether you think this will catch on and work in the US, because that is still a potential stumbling block if it isn't executed properly. Look, it's your favorite financial YouTuber, just from another even worse angle. Here we go. All right, so this is Afterpay for any of you PayPal holders that have never heard of it. And what you'll find interesting is that they kind of amalgamate a lot of the companies that use them here, a lot of the merchants that use them. But what I find, and there's quite, obviously big brands as well. It's a very kind of part of our culture at this point. But what you find interesting, you'll notice that a lot of what they do, the color, is this kind of aqua color, which is interesting because not too long ago, I don't know if this is a permanent change, but not too long ago we had this color scheme, which to me is a very similar color scheme to what we've got going on over here at PayPal. So whether that was a deliberate thing, I need to look into a bit more. I could be potentially off the mark here, and maybe it was just something that they did for the fun of it, or it was just a little temporary thing. I don't know, but it looks like they did a rebrand to this. I don't know if that's permanent. Oh no, it does say Afterpay's first major rebrand in a minty note. And look, I like the new logo. I think it looks good, but I'm low-key thinking that maybe they preempted PayPal jumping in. And if so, if they did preempt it, good on them. Hopefully they have a bit more of a chance to kind of fight PayPal off. But for you PayPal bulls, here's just a general, I don't know where it is for you guys, down here somewhere. Here is the general, or is it down here? Look at the website, what Paying For is, and the fact that it is no additional cost for consumers in terms of it being interest-free payments. And by the looks of it, I mean, they've already got the app design pretty spot on. I think that it looks pretty nice in terms of just this layout here. I think is great, nice and visual, and honestly, they have laid out the benefits quite well. I'm excited to see just how much they can kind of have this really take hold. And the last thing we'll look at is just before we talk about the actual Australian stocks is this video, which essentially outlines what buy now pay later is. What I find most interesting is, I mean, that you can see the kind of look they're going for. You can see the fact that it does look quite nice. They've laid it out very upfront and simply, and they've kind of marketed it very well to businesses. This is what this video seems to be. It's much more about kind of attracting the merchants first. So it tells me that they're most likely going for the pay the merchant kind of model. And again, I mean, I like the fact that, where is it? Right here. They straight up just said, buy now, pay later. It's exactly what's caught on here in Australia. I mean, it's nothing new for Aussie investors, and if you're watching this and you're Australian, you're thinking, oh yeah, whatever, what's so special about that? But I mean, it's quite obvious that PayPal is going to just attack this and do what worked in Australia and try and make it a thing in the US. And for PayPal bulls, it must feel great. You know, another alternative that I think you guys should probably check out though is these guys, Klarna. They're also quite large. It says Swedish, but I mean, they also have big backing from the largest Australian bank. So I'm interested. This is one of my sneaky little potential targets for Bill Ackman and his big takeover SPAC thing. But we'll see about that. But yeah, back to the video. First day of the announcement. I thought I'd do a bit of an experiment and go to all of the Facebook groups related to Buy Now, Pay Later and just see if anyone had caught on to what was going on. Because I don't follow PayPal closely, I don't follow Buy Now, Pay Later closely, but this news was very easy to come across and it just kind of was there. So I was thinking, all right, let's see if these Buy Now, Pay Later investors are actually, I guess, aware of what's going on. And unfortunately, it looks like in the Facebook groups, which I know can sometimes, you know, not be the best, I was counting with my best mate and we noticed that on certain posts, there was 20 plus, there was one post with 24 comments and another with 37 or 38 comments. And in all of those comments, it was all ZipPay and Afterpay holders. And I'm talking past like 2-3 o'clock in the arvo, you know, so plenty of time for this news to have been kind of disseminated and getting out there. And no one seemed to know what was going on until finally someone would comment, oh, it could be that PayPal news. Oh, but PayPal is a bit, I saw someone say, but PayPal is clunky and they won't be able to kind of have any kind of a dent in our stock. And seeing that definitely worried me. It did worry me because I know that with job seeker payments, that sort of thing, we are getting people investing that perhaps are just taking a tip from a mate or haven't done their own research. And for that reason, I'm more worried than usual for this situation. I have a strong inkling, I could be completely wrong, but I have a strong inkling that some of the Buy Now, Pay Later sector holders might, I guess, potentially panic sell and move straight into things like BrainChip, like BRN Holdings, as the next big thing. And honestly, I can't really say I have much of a basis in terms of historical knowledge or historical fact for that prediction, but it is the simple fact that we are in a huge, just unknown territory, an unprecedented time with everything that's happened lately, and with just the sheer amount of new investors to the game. So for that reason, yes, I'm a little bit worried. I know though that a lot of the investors that are actually watching this video are much more clued in than that and would probably want a bit more in-depth thought. And so I'll give you just what's come to me immediately just after the announcement. So apart from that volatility that will naturally come just with, I guess, inexperienced investors perhaps not really knowing what's going on and potentially getting informed a bit late and then selling a bit after the fact, my main concern is that this was probably the most predictable thing to happen. And so I know a lot of you bulls probably already knew this was going to happen and are still confident in holding your Buy Now, Pay Later stocks. And that is completely fine. I mean, I'm not a financial advisor and obviously I don't predict everything correctly all the time. But my greatest concern is a lot of the projections for these companies and a lot of the reason I guess people thought it was going into bubble territory is because everyone was projecting and kind of counting in, oh, but we will take the US market as well. You know, it's not just an Australian company. That's why we're bigger than Coles. And yeah, that's my big drama because PayPal really does have huge financial might. And if you look at just former people that have worked at PayPal and all the companies they've started, they are super successful in being able to build companies. A lot of the time when they leave PayPal, but still the whole idea of the PayPal kind of way of innovating is pretty spot on. I've seen a few people say, oh, but their service is quite clunky, that sort of thing. But I think they're missing the point in the fact that I think they're referring to just by like the paying service here in Australia, which admittedly isn't, you know, A1, it's not the best. But when you consider the US market, they have things like Venmo and they're much more willing to kind of push new technology out there in that market. So that's my big drama. That's my big issue. It's what are they going to do in terms of how quick will they roll this out? How much of their resources will they dedicate to this? And potentially, will they look to buy out other companies, or will they just aggressively market their own thing and just try and beat their competition that way? For a lot of the Australian companies, so here are my main points. Expanding overseas is one of the big kind of reasons that a lot of these companies have had to raise capital, have had to dilute shareholders in the past. And so I'm interested in knowing whether this will continue and they'll just keep having to raise cash and just go all eggs in that basket, or whether some of them will, in my opinion, do the wise thing and potentially scale it back. Say, all right, maybe we shouldn't try and attack every single, like as many markets as we are trying to enter right now, and maybe just focus on the UK and consolidating Australia. Because I think the market opportunity in Australia is already attractive enough to potentially focus a lot more resources, and I think that's what might happen. I think we might see a lot more advertising, even though we see it everywhere already in Australia. I think we might start to see a shift in terms of just a huge focus by the companies on Australian consumers, getting them really locked in and loyal to the Afterpay or ZipPay or whatever brand, and a very concerted effort in one country like the UK, for example, where it should be relatively easy to kind of translate the name and the brand and just everything over, and the system. I know that this is a sector that does have a lot of optimism surrounding it, and I can see why. It's just not personally something that I was very keen to invest in, but that all power to you if you are. The other thing that I see though is this definitely, well, let's hope not, for my Australian viewers' sake, this hopefully doesn't open the floodgates. That's my other big issue. Because for me, the natural first US major company to enter buy now, pay later was always going to be Square. That was my first thought. And now that PayPal's done it, I can see Square following suit quite quickly. Whether they will or not, I'm not sure, but they also have the Cash App as a huge advantage. They already have this system in millions of people's hands, as do PayPal through Venmo. And so entering the US market is not going to be such a hard graft in terms of you need to download this new app. They could just tack it on to the app that these people are already using. So, and it's been super popular. It's one of their biggest growth drivers. So that is a huge drama in terms of will Square follow suit, because if they do, again, that's two huge companies competing, and it really does start to become quite of a David versus Goliath story in terms of just financial might that they can dedicate to this without having to raise more capital or anything like that, which a lot of these Aussie companies would have to do in that case. I'll try not to leave you with just pure doom and gloom, because, you know, I like to be relatively positive in my thoughts on this channel. You know, we've had great times lately with BrainChip and Xiaomi and Neo and a lot of others, but there is potential for a buyout of Aussie buy now, pay later companies. That wouldn't surprise me at all, just to be able to kind of copy and paste the system straight over. That would make sense to me. Whether it would be someone as big as Afterpay, I don't know, potentially. But I would see more likely someone like Zip potentially getting bought out by one of those bigger companies. But that is pure speculation. Don't really take that anywhere. But I definitely think it's a possibility. Apart from that, I would like to see how this next kind of reporting season comes through with buy now, pay later stocks, which I mentioned in a previous video. I believe I mentioned that on my video where I spoke about it was titled 3 Aussie stocks I'm watching, something like that, where I talked about Tessera Resources and BrainChip at the time. And I just did a quick discussion on buy now, pay later, and my main issue was, how are they going to address general capital issues going forward. And so this next kind of reporting season is very interesting. Will be great to see the numbers and whether it's something they can really hold down, you know, before PayPal starts to operate. And that's the other big benefit. We have a good little short period, but still a good little period where these companies can just go absolutely off the wall trying to get new people, new customers, and solidify long-term partnerships with merchants and whatnot. I think that that's vital, and I think that 2020 has already been the year of the buy now, pay later stock. No doubt. I'm giving you guys that for sure. It's been your year. But to be able to cap it off and really kind of make it theirs, make it yours, it's got to finish quite strongly before PayPal enters the game. They have first mover advantage, Afterpay and whatnot. And all the Aussie stocks really. Amongst each other, you can debate who was first and whatnot and who has the biggest clout in the consumer's eye. But in general, they all do have a first mover advantage. The Aussie sector, the Aussie BNPL sector, has a first mover advantage on companies like PayPal and whatnot. So there is potential. And PayPal doesn't always get it right either. Maybe they'll have a horrible UI and it'll just not work particularly well, or it won't catch on with US consumers and it'll just die off. Whereas, you know, Australian consumers have really loved it. So you never know. There's still potential. There's still huge potential. And I guess, in my opinion, it's just fingers crossed for you guys, because I can see, you know, the general panic I've started to see, and I know, yeah, not a great feeling. So let's just hope for the best for you guys. Be sure to definitely weigh up the fact that PayPal is massive, though. They're not just the people you use to pay things, you know, through eBay anymore. They're huge, and they're diversified across a lot more than what they used to be. But yeah, I don't want to be super negative, so I'll probably just leave the video there. I would love to hear your comments though. Do you think that your particular buy now pay later stock can kind of hold off this huge whale in the market, or do you think that, you know, it'll be just a shift in strategy that'll help in terms of just consolidating Australia? Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to be able to chat with you guys down below. Be sure to subscribe and have a great day.